the only thing the Lord asks of us, we look around and we see bad examples, right? But yet we have a beautiful example when we go inside and we listen to what source, when we listen to what God would have for us. And in that message, in that verse in Micah, he says the only thing the Lord desires from us is to love justice, to love kindness, to love mercy. Love mercy, love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. There's our example. And I'm reminded of the beautiful verse that is stated so many times when a couple is at the altar before God. And the one scripture that invariably comes up when we set out to make a commitment to love someone the rest of our lives, the definition that is always given is that love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. So because it doesn't envy, it doesn't compete. There's nothing to compete with. It doesn't boast. It is not proud, like look at our love and you don't have it. It's not boastful. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others. What an example of what we set out at an altar before God with someone we're committing the rest of our lives to be with, is that we don't dishonor another. It is not self-seeking, and it is not easily angered. It doesn't mean that we won't get angry. It's not that it's our default. It's not our knee-jerk reaction. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It doesn't mean that we don't remember wrongs happening. It's that we don't keep an account. We don't keep a record. I'm going to tell you guys, this last week, there was something that pierced my heart and hurt it so deeply as I was witnessing like a fly on the wall. So we were at home, and our employee was with me, and we were on a stairwell and we were hanging pictures. And Greg was with the homeowner, and the husband comes home. And the husband innocently says, "Hey, how are you guys?" Well, they're very much involved in what they were trying to work out with electronics. And they didn't really acknowledge the husband coming in at all. They were trying to hurry so that they could have more family time, so that we could get out of their way. We would be out of the way. So he's not being acknowledged. And so he says, "Hey, has the dog been fed?" And we could hear this conversation from him and the conversation going on, and he wasn't acknowledged. And so he says, "Hey, was the dog fed?" And there was something so humiliating that came out of the homeowner's mouth to her spouse that she has loved for years and committed to loving. And it was, "What do you think? Do you not know after all this time our dog is on a schedule? And stop speaking to me. Can't you see I'm busy?" And there was something that just pierced my heart. It was so painful in my heart for this person who was humiliated in front of other people. And I was like, oh, my heart. And I looked at my employee who's with me, and she looked at me, and both of us were just drawn in our face like, oh my God, we just witnessed without being a direct observer in front of the conversation. And it was like, oh my God, that was the example of the exact opposite of love. True love does not dishonor another, ever. And I saw a post on Facebook that I was sharing with Greg too, is that a real man or a real woman does not insult their spouse in front of others, ever. Even if you disagree with them. Imagine that we as a unity family make a pledge that love is bigger than our disagreement that we have with someone else. And that we don't use whatever we believe to insult another in public or in private. It was like a spear went through my heart to hear a spouse degrade their spouse. It was unconscionable because I identified with both. Because haven't we, in a hurried state or just wanting to get through a task, that we've snapped sharply at someone that we pledge to love the rest of our lives? And I noticed myself even wanting in that moment that I was like, wait a minute, I felt like I had to defend God this week for something. And I thought, who am I to defend someone else in the presence of someone that I love? And I had to apologize. It's not that we're going to get it right, but imagine if we wake up in that moment and say, sweetheart, I humiliated you in public, and I am deeply sorry. I don't ever want you to feel less than in the presence of me, the one who has said, I will love and honor you. I won't be easy to anger. I want to be kind. And we can all feel that when our heart opens in the presence of someone who is being kind to us. We want to open. We want to share. And guys, let me tell you something. I came across a 1-minute video I posted on Facebook. And just prior to that, Martin Luther King, he says, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that. And that's a quote by our Martin Luther King. So as we have these interactions with our political environment that we have right now, as we have maybe frustrations that are elevated in our home life with our loved ones that we're more in contact with, do we use light to drive out the darkness? And do we use love to drive out hate? Because that's the only thing that works. And Simon Sinek had posted a video, a 1 minute, few seconds video. And he says, none of us can do this on our own, this game called life. None of us are in this alone. We can't. And what is true vulnerability? What is true love with each other? Is it posting a video that says I'm sad, where there's no actual real interaction? He says that's not love at all. He said that's just broadcasting. True love states what's happening internally with us, with someone else. And his favorite definition of love. Are you guys ready for this? Simon Sinek says his favorite definition of love is giving someone the ability to destroy you and trusting that they won't. That's vulnerability. That's being real. That's saying, here is my heart, and you could literally destroy it. You could insult me in front of other people. You could insult me in private. But true love says, I trust that you won't do that. Wow.
Which is a really deep level of trust. From Charles Fillmore's book, The Revealing Word, he says, love is an inner quality that sees good everywhere and in everybody. It insists that all is good, and by refusing to see anything but good, it causes that quality finally to appear uppermost in itself and in all things. Love is the great harmonizer and healer. Whoever calls on God as Holy Spirit for healing is calling on divine love. Divine love will bring your own to you, adjust all misunderstandings, and make your life and affairs healthy, happy, harmonious, and free. And from Romans 13:10, he says, love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. You know, and I was thinking, because a lot of people are polarized right now. They're thinking either, you know, well, my team won or didn't win, and I'm, you know, there's a lot of like anger around it and protesting. But I love how this starts. Love is the inner quality that sees good everywhere and in everybody. And I'm reminded that when I know what's right, that's not always what's best for me. And God isn't here to make me right. God has created something that gives me what's best for me, whether or not I think it's right. So it's funny how we forget that, right? We go on like, but I know I'm right, and therefore I have to fight this. And I'm like, well, wait a second. The second you fight, you've lost track of your love. So you've lost already. So I'm constantly dispensing. And I have, you know, Tamara will tell you, I have a lot of self-righteousness to dispense with. But I'm regularly, it brings me tremendous peace of mind whenever I find myself twisted up with, this is wrong. I'm just siding with, I know this is right. But if I look back at my life, I'm really clear that most of the times when I knew what was right, it wasn't necessarily what was best. It was just something I was convinced about, seeing the smaller picture. So I have to wonder, if I truly have faith in God, not in the president, because if you don't have faith in God, great, then pick a president and stand by him to the death. But if you have faith in God, it doesn't really matter which one ends up there, because the God I worship is going to make it work out just fine for everybody. His way, not my way. Not blue or red's way, but in the way of love.
You know, and it's interesting because one of the things I like to do is replay something I wished I'd had the words to be able to say in the moment. Okay, so I'm looking at that scene of this couple, which I wasn't present for. And I thought, if I was right there, how would I respond? And I thought for a moment, what if I responded like, oh, you know, that really hurts my heart. I know that you guys love each other. I just would love to see that in behavior, in evidence. But then I thought, maybe that's a judgment. Who am I to sit in judgment of how they're supposed to behave, right? So I thought, what would be a way that everybody could save face, that it wasn't like who's being right, who's being wrong, who's doing whatever. So I thought, you know, in that moment, if I were to replay it and I was actually present there, if I had the wherewithal and I want to replay it and I want to be able to do it in the moment, which would be beautiful, and to use an example of someone else like Simon Sinek, And in that moment, if I could have just been able to say, had I been present, say, you know, I was listening to a really interesting video. It was just like for a minute. And one guy was sharing his definition of love was that you would be able to share something, anything that could potentially destroy you, and you trust that the other person won't. And I saw this statement. It said that somebody who really loves somebody would never insult them in public. I don't know. Maybe that's too much. But if I could have said something that would have honored love and not just acquiesced as hate or humiliation was happening. I'm still working that out. What would I say in that moment that would go, oh my goodness, I know you guys love each other. I'm wondering if we could say something that represented that. Maybe that's it. I love both of you guys, and I know you love each other, and maybe we could say something right now that would honor the other. I don't know. Something that maybe I could say something that would have somebody go, wait a minute, you know what, that was really cruel. And who I pledge to honor the rest of my life, I want that to be in my behavior. I want that to come out to where I don't dishonor them, even when I don't agree with them. How cool would that be? And you know what this reminded me of? Do you guys remember the story of Noah? Do you remember after the Noah's Ark had landed and Noah found himself getting really drunk in a tent? How many of you guys remember that story? In the Bible. You remember that? What happened as two of his sons stumbled upon their father making an ass of himself, making a fool of himself, naked, drunk? Can you just have that picture? Your father is naked, free willy, out there going, ah, being all crazy. One son says, oh my God, that's my dad being an idiot. And he goes out and he broadcasts it to the community. What an ass, my dad. He's all drunk and naked. What did the other son do? Yes, Jerry. Yes. Not only covered him, but guess what he did? The other son got a coat and he backed in. He didn't look at his father to shame him. He backed in, he took the coat, and he covered his father. And he let him sleep it off. He didn't humiliate him. He could have. Justifiably so. You're making an ass of yourself. Go ahead and do it. No. He backed in and he covered his father. When Noah woke up, what did Noah do when he found out what each son did? Who remembers, Jerry? Dylan, he killed one. No. No, he didn't kill him. He gave an extra dose of blessing to the son who covered his sins. And sin meaning missing the mark. We're all going to do that. We're all going to miss the mark. We're all going to dishonor our spouse from time to time, or we're going to dishonor and we're going to be cruel and we're going to be whatever, okay? But we also, with the awareness, have the choice to cover in kindness.
You know, that's the beauty of what Christ did, isn't it? I mean, it's like he didn't just say, oh, wow, somebody just was in the other room, you know, doing something stupid and I don't know what to say. He actually, and he didn't look past their sins, ours. He actually forgave them. He took responsibility for them and said, you know what, I'm going to handle this. And I'm going to take care of this. And I'm going to take care of this for you. And I'm not going to make a big deal of it. it's handled. And I mean, think of, like, that's what I love about the Bible. Really, the thing that I love about the Bible is just Jesus, just how he conducted himself in every situation, that there was never a correction. Even when people were, pinning him to the wall about how should this be done or how should that. Now, if they were curious, if they came to him with a childlike curiosity and a true desire to learn, Sermon on the Mount, he's got all kinds of advice, right? But when he was pressed to choose sides, he would never do it. He just chose the side of love. And when right and wrong and good and bad were literally hanging next to him, the criminals hanging next to him, he said, you're coming with me into paradise. The level of love and the quality of forgiveness. A lot of us have a quality of forgiveness that's like, you did this to me, and I realize, the more unforgiving I am of you, it's like poison that I drink and I'm trying to make you die. So I'm gonna let you off the hook. That's kind of low quality forgiveness, right? That's just trying to save myself from the pain of holding a grudge. But there's a whole other level of forgiveness where with the Father, where you go through steps to have them not have to pay the price for having made a mistake.
I mean, and you think about how much we disdain the paparazzi. The more you're in the public eye, the more you disdain it, because they're looking for dirt. They're looking for something that's wrong. And what's one of the things that we hear in the Bible too about gossip? Okay, there's one thing to go out and to have everybody shame or discredit somebody else. And there's another thing to cover, and there's another thing to be able to speak your truth with a trusted friend. Now, I'm going to imagine that the brother who covered him also needed to speak his truth of his own pain, and he could do that with a trusted friend. And saying, you know what, I'm sad. My dad was a drunk, and I was scared because he was exposing not just himself, but it was a reflection on the family. There's something to honor about in private, to be able to share your pain. It's not about not having any. It's about being able to share with a trusted friend, knowing it's not going anywhere. You know what? I've got a drunken dad, and it really hurts me. And that's why we make vows that a true friend will be able to share something with someone else that could destroy them. And you have to be able to trust they won't use it against you. That's love too. That's love. And that's a whole different definition of sharing it publicly as gossip or insulting them terribly in public, as to be able to share with a trusted friend, you know what, I was really embarrassed. But you know what I did is I covered him, because that said everything about me. I covered them, and I still hurt because I was embarrassed. What if we got that honest? What if we got that real? What if we got that authentic? What if, because you had anger rise up in you because of the way your spouse was behaving or somebody else was behaving, and you didn't dishonor that either? You didn't shame you either. But you got into the chambers of your own heart and you said, God, I'm hurting. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to be affiliated with somebody who's going to go out there and hang their free willy in front of everybody and dishonor and discredit all of us. Help me. Help me. No shame in that.
And it's really, I guess, the help that you're talking about. It's really the help to understand, right? I mean, like Charles Fillmore's definition of love. Love sees all things. It looks at something. And instead of seeing a scenario as this horrible thing happened, it looks at the same scenario and says, I'm going to bring kindness to this. And I'm going to choose to see it as somehow in alignment with God's will. It's like the other side of the coin that, you know, Tamara was a social worker, and I was surprised to find out that she told me once that one of the most common forms of abuse to children, the most common form is neglect, right? Just to ignore them is a form of abuse. And if you do that, you're going to have to deal with social work. You can't just ignore your kids. And so a lot of times, kids that are acting out are trying to get their parents to be angry. Why? Because to them, if you get angry about something I did, at least you care about me. At least you're noticing me. And so on the flip side of the coin, I'm always trying to remember that when I see someone yelling or screaming or reacting, it's a poor expression of caring. You know, let's face it, if there's someone that I don't have an investment with, someone that I just meet on the street, and I'm like, and Tamara and I were talking about this a little, it's like, you know, it can be really hard to listen to people that you love, talk about what's going on with them, and taking it personally, right? But if you're listening to somebody in the street that might be, you know, they might be pointing their finger right at you and saying something to you, but if you don't know them, you're kind of like, well, you know, you take it with a grain of salt, because you know that this person on the street doesn't even know you. They haven't invested in caring about you. You haven't invested in caring about them. Their words don't carry weight because there's not caring behind them. But if you're with someone and they are upset, one of the interpretations is, wow, this person is really caring about me and caring about something important to them that I'm involved with. And maybe they're just trying to communicate that to me. So while Tamara has a beautiful point that love is kind, when it's not, it sometimes is just a poor expression of caring. And that's where, when I was standing right next to this person that was blasting, you know, her spouse, I didn't have the same reaction as Tamara. She was in the other room, and it really hurt Tamara. And me, I sat there and I said, wow, this woman is really struggling. She's had tremendous health issues. She was describing how she had fallen and couldn't get up, and her husband was upstairs asleep, and he has hearing issues, and his hearing aids were out, and he couldn't hear her yelling that she couldn't get up. And so she was desperately trying to get some technology in her house. You know, I mean, you can say to Alexa, Alexa, dial 911, or Alexa, call my daughter. And if you have a little puck in the room, you don't have to go get your phone or find it. Now, the funny thing was, she said she had her phone right in her pocket, but she was panicking. So she wasn't thinking of any of this. She was in this zone of panicking. And at the moment when I heard her bark at her husband, I was thinking, wow, this woman is really panicking. She's hurt. And then to hear Tamara describe it, I'm like, wow, I was really not seeing more of the sides of this.
And me too. I wasn't seeing all sides, because what I did was I projected myself into him being humiliated. And I said, you know, that kind of treatment over time makes people not want to be here. It does. When you get humiliated over and over and over again, what's the point? And I identified with how horrible that felt for him. When I heard from Greg's side, I could see her frustration on how scared and how desperate. It wasn't coming out behaviorally as honoring.
And then just zoom out above both of our perspectives and take a look at it through Jesus' eyes, right?
Right.
God is in control. This is all going to work out beautifully beyond anything you can imagine. I don't have to worry or fret. I don't have to take care of or correct. There's something beautiful happening here that we're distracted from. And that's what, when I think of, I mean, I like to think of before Jesus came to earth, what was the planet like? Right? Because he came to save the world in so many different, you know, you can say that a whole bunch of different ways. But when Jesus came, there was a need. This is in the middle of a very dark time. You know, people are being fed to lions as entertainment, and there's a lot of really dark stuff going on with governments and control and slavery and torture and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, here comes Jesus, and what's he bringing? What's he bringing? Is he bringing, you know, his 20,000 legions of angels to clean up the swamp? Or is he saying, hey, there's this thing called forgiveness. You guys don't know much about it because the people that you've been working for, if you do something wrong, it's held against you for centuries, and your family and everybody. But there's this thing called forgiveness where we realize there's billions of people on the planet, and some of them are stumbling and bumbling around and making mistakes.
And really, the only thing we need to pay attention to is our heart, right? And notice when your heart tightens and when your heart opens up. And let me just reread this, our Sunday's daily word. It said the word kindness, it triggers feelings of warmth, connection, and love in my heart. I smile as I recall ways that friends or family members and others have shown me kindness. I feel again the gratitude and blessing I experienced in those moments. I mean, every time I walked through my Nana's door at Thanksgiving and smelled the wonderful juices of good food cooking, and her coming around the corner saying, "Oh, my love in Bunny Beach," I knew in the moment I was in the presence of love, and no matter what had been going on in my world, fell away. I remember those experiences. Gratitude, love, and a beautiful awareness of connection fill my heart, and my mind is remarkably similar. My mind in a remarkably similar way when I remember kindness I've shared. The movement of electrons through a wire creates a current, a flow. As kindness moves from person to person, it creates a flow of divine love. Both giving and receiving are essential to this current of love. So I look for opportunities to share acts of kindness. I look for those. I welcome with gratitude, with a grateful heart, the kindness others share with me. What does the Lord require of you? In Micah, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
You know, and Jerry and I occasionally will sit down for lunch or something, and I'm so interested in, because he served. You know, we just had Veterans Day, and he served as a veteran for a couple of decades or more, right? And volunteering for really difficult situations. You know, Tamara talks about how if you put a candle in a lit room, it doesn't do much. But if you put a candle in a dark room, it lights up everything. And I've interviewed a few people that have been on, like, that went through the Holocaust earlier in my life. And you talk to these folks, and they talk about love from a perspective that they got to express love in an environment of really harsh darkness. And sometimes I wonder if the times we're going through right now, because if you think about it, we all, I think, resent mediocrity and status quo to some degree. You know, we don't want a life that's just easy. We live like that sometimes. Oh, I gotta pay my bills, and okay, I'm in a good space. I can pay my bills and I can get this done. I get good. Now I can relax. Relaxing, we don't necessarily, you know, respect people who relaxed through life and lived in mediocrity and status quo. We admire people who could hold their candle up to the darkness, not in a light room. And I look at the times we're going through, and I'm going, wow, you know, we're being given the opportunity to express love in the face of a whole lot of darkness. Now, if you watch the news, all you're hearing about is the darkness, because this isn't over. It's a backdrop that's being laid. Just like when the Holocaust was happening, nobody knew 6 million people were being dispensed with. And when they found out, and the books that were written by young girls that were there at the time that decided that they were going to choose to see the good amidst horrific situations, for me was so inspiring to literally talk to these people who chose love in the face of an absolute dark backdrop. And so as things are happening that we are not happy with, that we know are wrong, try to understand that, maybe it might, I'm thinking in terms of like, I want this next 2 years to be profitable and easy and resortful. Like I get to go to the spa, but instead, maybe there's a decades-long plan that God's putting in place where it's like, okay, you guys have, you've had a really abundant time, but I'm going to give you an opportunity here, a backdrop, to really show how loving you can be. And don't we all want to know that part of ourselves?
So with that, let's open it up to what maybe came up for you guys today.
Yeah, pretty provocative subject. So.
Yeah, love. Wow.
Dylan?
Yeah, what came up for you, Dylan?
I don't need to value myself, but I think because of my youth, I don't really have as much insight into risk being but I already had a very complicated history of love. I thought I knew what love was in my teen years, but really I didn't. It was that sort of puppy love phase. But once I've only ever been in true love with someone twice. And both times it really kind of opened me up only after the fact of no longer being with them and realizing the things that I was experiencing and feeling. And if you ask people, but I've been asked a lot of times, what is love? Can you define love? And to me, because you have everyone saying, at least to some degree, something different, I think one of the better definitions of love is no definition at all. Because to me, love is not something you can really put into words. I mean, sure, you can describe what you're feeling, what you're going through with someone, but love to me is how you feel, not only internally, but recognizing what's happening externally because of what you're feeling. And like I was saying earlier, I think one of the biggest parts of love is being vulnerable and allowing yourself to open up. And kind of like you were saying, you're basically giving them ammo that they can use against you, but they're not hooked. And I mean, I've done that. It's, it can be a very difficult thing, even when you're with someone who you really trust and you really feel comfortable with, because for me at least, it's very difficult to give a big piece of me to someone else. I don't know, maybe small pieces here and there, but to really let it out to someone who very vulnerable, to like, oh, okay, that is really relieving. It's very therapeutic in my hand. I mean, as I've said several times before, my favorite quote of all time is "Greatest thing love ever learned is just love."
Amen. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Dylan. Portia, you want to share what came up for you?
During the interactive message today, I found a possible solution with a situation that I'm dealing with right now.
Wow.
I have not spoken or texted a person for over a week. A week ago, I co-hosted a Zoom meeting with someone else. We were having a very, very wonderful time, all of us, in the Zoom meeting. This person did their portion, and at the end, I gave people an opportunity to express again in a very particular type of expression. And I said, and then he went on a rant, a political rant. And I said, this is not a political forum. It's whatever it was. And he started cursing me in front of everyone on the Zoom. And it took my co-host a little while to mute this person. But prior to that time, he said the F word to me. And so this particular person has been in contact with Tim, explaining all the stuff that happened, his inebriated situation that marred his memory, his judgment, and the emotional state that he was in. And today, I got the answer. Other people suggested several things. And so, to be kind to him, to understand all the stuff that he told me about his being in an emotional state as well as physical state. But I'll see what kindness will do. Now, I know about ignorance, that people who get angry and all of this, that to ignore them is the biggest punishment for them. I was angry, so angry with this person that I refused to text him, talk to him. I was still angry because I wasn't sure. I knew what the punishment was. But I, inside, was still angry with him. And so now I could go to the place of kindness and listen to him. And then we'll figure it out.
Wow.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Portia. Wow. Thank you so much. Jerry?
Well, I guess one of the things that came to me is speaking about knowing the communist, Portia addressing the inebriated person, sure makes a good reason not to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that came to me, and it came to me during the showing of a good day, and seeing those children, it reminds me, I don't know, of what is going on and the way it's affecting children. And knowing that they're not seeing their friends, and not socializing and so forth. And that brings up the immigration thing that, we're in a situation now that alcohol sales are outside. And you know what that's got to lead to. And somebody needs to look and say, is the approach that we're taking now the right? And I for one, know that.
So it really is. Alcohol makes that decision even more
Pronounced.
pronounced.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. What was the question?
What came up for you?
Let's see. I've always said that in a part of balance, that everything is going to be okay in a lot of I think where you were going there was, there's stuff we don't know what's happening. Creating in one way or another. Being creative. It's just in some perspective at some point in time. There is the end goal, which I don't know, or we don't know in most cases. I can see that knowing that I don't have all the information, and having the patience to you're waiting for it. Since it is all going to be okay, something like that.
Mhm.
It is nice to know that I'm not in control of, well, most of my things.
Right?
It's pretty neat watching.
Yeah, it's good to be fired.
Yeah, definite drama.
Fired for taking care of the universe.
Yeah, great. This is so beautiful. Let's go to Tracine. What came up for you, sister?
Is she there?
Tracine.
Perhaps monitoring. Oh, well, let's go to Judy.
Okay.
Ray was on. Ray was on. By the way, we had a little mishap with people being blocked. If you in any way you're being blocked from Zoom, let me know, and we'll rectify it. But I just found out today that someone was blocked. So.
Okay, Miss Judy, what came up for you today, my friend?
Well, I just want to say good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good to see you.
And you're feeling some emotion, huh?
Well, I'm cold and I've got the sniffles.
Okay.
We'll put you on a prayer list.
Oh, my
Thank
goodness.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
Judy.
sweetheart. Is there anything in addition that you're feeling besides the sniffles? Are you feeling some emotion?
Oh, I'm okay. Just,
Just feeling.
yeah.
Just feeling. It's extraordinary
Mhm.
the times we're in, and to have it bring up and move some things inside of us. I think it really helps us rearrange a lot of things internally. So thank you for your emotion. Thank you for what's coming up for you. We really do appreciate it, Judy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and Dad, what's come up for you, Dad?
Well, there's a lot of words that were used, and the ideas that you bring out, and a lot of things to think about, and we all want to be kind to each other, and I love you guys.
Oh, love you too, Dad. You're a beautiful example of kindness for us, for sure. Even in the face of what I know you believe, you still continue to be kind. And I love that about you. And Tracy, do you have, sorry, babe. Do you have a moment or you want to share what came up for you, love?
She unmute.
Okay, no worries.
Either way. Tamara and I, as you know, we talk about how we attend workshops from time to time. One of the big upcoming things is gamification, which is how do you take you take a group of people and you put them in a room and you play a game and you teach lessons through playing games. And, kids are growing up now playing games more than ever before. And it's not Monopoly. It's very intricate, complicated video games with multiple people. I know Dylan is a gamer and it's unbelievable that you can step into a whole other world with games. Well, Tamara and I know this guy. His name's Clinton Swain, and he does this gamification where he gets a whole bunch of people in a room and let's say they want to learn about business or whatever. It's fascinating to see that he plays a couple of rounds of the game without any real consequence, right? But then he starts adding things into the game. And I've done this in my workshops too, where it's like, you have people say, okay, you're all going to debate something and we're going to see who ends up being the leader in the room, right? And it's not a big deal. But then I say, okay, and the winner, the top 3 people that win are going to get, the first person is going to get $10,000 in workshops or $2,000 in workshops or $300 in products, right? And all of a sudden the game changes so dramatically because now there's skin in the game. With Clinton Swain, he would say, okay, so now you're playing with real money. So everybody, and he would tell people, you got to come to the workshop with $100 in your pocket, right? And he would say, now pull the money out of your pocket. And the game became so much more intense because there was skin in the game, right? So it's one thing to see movies and hear about and talk about and be in a situation in society when everything is real simple and everything's going along and I can always go back to my safe home. What we're experiencing is skin in the game. when it comes to loving each other right now. And how do you do that? I think Jerry's got a really good point. I mean, who's paying the price here? We got kids that are paying the price. They can't learn the ways they used to learn. They can't interact in the ways they used to interact. They're going through, and it really is something where we go, wait a minute. But keep in mind, just have faith that this is just putting skin in the game, and stay focused on the loving person you want to become, because that's the opportunity. It is frustrating. We certainly did not see this coming. There's no way I would have guessed in my 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s that I was going to be going through a pandemic that would shut down almost everything on the planet. Really hard to imagine. But now that it's here, and we would see in these workshops that some of the most calm and collected people, when you started adding dollar signs to what was going on, their inner personality would come out. You'd be dealing with a wolf or a guy that was really compromising his morals. This is an opportunity for us to really connect with our soul and really make a choice between that fork in the road between ego that blames and judges and fights and separates and divides and figures out what right and wrong is and knows that it's right, and the soul that, for me, when I think of my soul, I'm like, my soul would do what Jesus did, right? To love everyone unconditionally, no matter how harsh things get, no matter what happens, to be able to come to any situation with a bigger love than I did yesterday. Because there's definitely that choice today, tomorrow, last week, with the election, with the pandemic, and with each other. Amen. And so I would just say, don't forget, and we talk about this a lot, bigger love. Mm-hmm. Whatever that situation is, to have faith. There's something bigger that we don't understand, because if I don't really trust that something bigger is happening, my ego is going to have a field trip with making me the most important person in the room. Or in Bakersfield, like, I know this is wrong. And it's like, well, wait a minute, is there a God here?
And just the opportunity to remove shame from ourselves, to remove it from other people, and just allow what wants to divinely flow through, be present. Thank you guys so much for being here. This has been extraordinary, and thank you for your hearts and your sharing, your openness, your willingness to go, is there something more? So
yeah, and please do. We love this, that this is interactive. Please make this a venue for your own healing and bring it every week.
So let's thank God in our divine offering here, that divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And thank you for your continued support. We're truly, truly grateful. So our peace song, Dylan, and take us away.
And let it begin with me. There be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all around. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace be done with me. Let this be the moment from. With every step I take, let this be my joyous song. To take each moment, to live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Our prayer of protection is that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us,
The presence of God watches over us. And wherever we are, God is. And wherever God is, all is well. Amen. Love you guys.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being with us, guys. Love you, love you, love you. Aw, that's excellent. Good day, good day.